Hello, welcome to the Froebel Trust 2026 online conference. My name's Sasha Powell and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Trust. We're really pleased and grateful that you're joining us today. You're one of almost 600 people who've signed up to attend this conference, and I've no doubt that the webinars chat will be really busy with messages from all over the world. Today's conference is one of the ways that we celebrate and share learning from projects that the Trust has funded. These projects are grouped into 3 sessions this morning. Our first session, Involving, includes projects that demonstrate the importance of the Froebelian principle of unity and connectedness. Each project will focus on either involving educators as researchers, parents of children with additional needs, or prioritising children's voices. The second session, Informing, focuses on the ways projects can support knowledgeable and nurturing educators by making connections between policy and Froebelian practice in different contexts. And the final session, Inspiring, considers how our projects support the development of knowledge that can transform the practice of early childhood education and care students, lecturers, and educators. And now I'd really like to thank everyone who's going to be presenting today. We've got a fascinating programme because their projects are diverse in terms of focus and methodology. And I think they demonstrate the Trust's openness to supporting a wide range of research questions and project proposals, which are united by Froebelian principles. Now, I'd also like to thank our colleagues who are chairing the sessions today. They'll introduce our speakers and share the questions from you from the Q&A box with the speakers. So now I'd like to introduce our first session chair, Professor Carol Block. Carol is a Froebel Trust travelling tutor who joins us from South Africa, where she's Director of PRIORITISing, the project for the study of alternative education. And she's also Extraordinary Professor in Language Education at the University of the Western Cape. Carol, hello. Over to you to begin our first session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha, and good morning, everybody. It's lovely to be here with you. So our first session, Involving, we're highlighting the importance of the Froebelian principles of unity and connectedness in research. And these projects are going to show the benefits of including child and parent voices, older people voices, and of involving educators in research. As you can see, you'll be hearing about using wearable technology to explore freedom with guidance in outdoor nursery, and including children in woodwork who have special educational needs, and then the impact of having grand friends involved in children's lives. Okay, so our focus here, involving educators as researchers and involving freedom with guidance in outdoor nursery environments. We have 2 speakers. Corinne Vincent is an independent researcher, consultant, and honorary senior lecturer in early childhood education at Canterbury Christ Church University. She has taught in all phases of education during her career, and her doctoral study examined the values and beliefs of early childhood initial teacher educators. Morning, Corinne. And then Polly Balshaw. Polly Balshaw is a senior lecturer in early years at Canterbury Christ Church University. She's worked previously as an early years professional in a Sure Start Children's Centre. She's currently undertaking a professional doctorate at the Open University about babies' perspectives of the outdoors. So over to you both. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you also to the Froebel Trust for the invitation to share our research with you all today. Although there's only 2 of us presenting today, we would also like to acknowledge that they're the others that have made this research possible. So Dr. Mariana Papadopoulou and Dr. Kate Smith are also co-authors of the research that we're presenting. And of course, this wouldn't have been possible without the nursery educators themselves. Thank you to the Froebel Trust for funding this project. The full report's now available on the website for you to look at it in full. But what we're going to try and do today is to give you a small insight into the findings. We'd like to start with some quiet contemplation. So when did you last explore and reflect on your pedagogical thinking in close collaboration with others? When did you last see yourself on camera as you interacted with children and reflect deeply on this? Perhaps this is already a feature of your practice. If so, is this part of routine and regular dedicated reflection time? And have you ever troubled the concept of the ways in which you offer freedom with guidance in your own practice? So this project set out to explore the ways in which a group of 10 nursery educators working with children between the ages of 2 and 4 in settings in southeast England were engaging with the Froebelian concept of freedom with guidance. They'd not participated in any of the taught Froebel courses, and their settings were not promoted as explicitly Froebelian in identity. These educators had previously engaged in a similar project with the university, which had aimed to develop their knowledge and understanding of outdoor learning. And this participatory action research project had formed the foundation of our bid for Froebel funding, which was to, this time, apply a Froebel lens to understand more about the ways in which the nursery educators were offering freedom with guidance as knowledgeable and nurturing educators. So we want to share their voices from the data today to illustrate their thinking as they explored the concept of freedom with guidance through this project. But first of all, thinking about your professional learning and continuing professional development, what sort of professional learning opportunities have you experienced? Have any been research informed or research focused? How did they support you to develop your knowledge and understanding of your interactions in practice? Kennedy's review of the professional learning literature back in 2005 categorized professional learning into 3 types. You can see them here as transmission, transitional, and transformative. And these are defined by increasing capacity for professional autonomy. Our project meshes with the transformative domain that relies on the exploration of professional tensions, rather than more transmissive forms of professional learning where knowledge is imparted. So our educators were the experts. We were all researching together. It was specifically designed to support and value their knowledge and their expertise in their own contexts, and to support them in developing new professional knowledge about their practices in offering freedom with guidance. So our research was very learner-centered, and one of our key findings was the power of wearable video cameras and the ways that they helped our educators to become more consciously aware of and to reflect on their pedagogical thinking. Our educators were invited to select and share a few minutes of video footage with each of our 3 focus groups and to narrate their thinking. And through this, they began to articulate this pedagogical thinking aloud. The educators found it quite challenging to watch themselves in practice, but as they became used to it, they saw lots of things that they would otherwise have missed. Our first key finding is that wearable technology assisted educators to become more consciously aware of and reflect on their pedagogical thinking. So as one of our educators said,
I find the GoPro really helpful to see how they interact with things I'm doing with them. So then I can look back and say, they don't like doing that, or that works, but I need to tweak that a little bit because she did enjoy it, but she's not getting the concept as such. In the moment, you've got so many things going through your head. It's hard to judge that.
So they noticed children's responses, they observed their body language, and they often spotted things happening in the background that they'd missed. Slowing down and considering their actions helped them to reconsider their interactions. So here's a reminder of the Froebelian principle of knowledgeable and nurturing educators.
Early childhood educators who engage in their own learning and believe in principled and reflective practice are a key aspect of a Froebelian approach. Froebelian educators facilitate and guide rather than instruct. They provide rich, real-life experiences and observe children carefully, supporting and extending their interests through freedom with guidance.
Our research aims were to develop early childhood educators' ability to offer freedom with guidance when children play outdoors, to support early childhood educators to be knowledgeable, nurturing educators through careful observation and professional reflection, and to create a Froebelian community of practice of early childhood educators via the creation of a Froebelian hub in Kent. We really wanted to understand their encounters with this concept and understand some of the challenges in engaging with it. So another of our key findings was that freedom and guidance was observed to coexist in the day-to-day practices outdoors. For these 10 educators working in 3 different types of nurseries in our study, freedom and guidance coexisted. It was not a binary concept, but there were enablers and restrictors of both. Freedom existed within parameters such as routines, safety, and pro-social rules. It was not total freedom, and sometimes things impacted it. Guidance was more effective when the participants, adults and children, had the freedom to make decisions and choose. And nature was pivotal and a great enabler of freedom with guidance. It was found to be a great facilitator. So as the project developed, our educators were able to notice the changes in their thinking about offering freedom with guidance. As this Canary nursery educator said,
when it started, I was like, it's going to be something new that we had to get our heads around. And actually, as we've gone through the project, we've realised we're doing it all the time. And it's because when we first started, we thought only film nature things. And then we were just actually, there's guidance happening all the time. They've got the freedom. We can talk about it today from the other way around. How are they guiding us? What freedom do they give us?
So they realised that this concept was not entirely new to them.
In my head, when it started, it was going to be this different thing that we've never done before. And actually, it's something that we are doing all of the time. But doing this project has helped us to see that, I think, and unpick it a little bit more.
So freedom with guidance involved dynamic and demanding pedagogical thinking, requiring attentiveness, inquisitiveness, curiosity, knowledge of the children, skill and confidence. Watching and reflecting on their actions enabled the educators to increasingly appreciate the importance of being flexible in the moment, opportunistic, and prepared to change course at short notice if children's guidance suggested that a change of plan was needed. They began to change their behaviour and consider their mindsets and the impact of this on children's learning.
It does come down a lot to your own pedagogy and your own mindset about being in the moment and allowing it to just unfold in front of you. You just have to let go of all that control just to allow that freedom and guidance to really come through organically. And those were the moments that were the best.
So in Heron Nursery, one nursery educator reflected on their practice while children were exploring a bug hotel.
Letting them explore a little bit more, specifically with the topic of nature, just letting them be with it and explore it by themselves. They were just sitting there and looking at it. And I thought, well, I could go and ask them questions, or I could just let them look at it and observe it. So I didn't speak to them as I usually would. I just left them there. And they did get up quickly, but they had had that time to look at it and see if they were interested by themselves and take their own lead.
So you can see the educators giving themselves increasing permission to offer freedom with guidance.
It's made me see it from a different perspective, where I don't have to be as teaching about it. There are other ways to do it. I'm really enjoying this freedom with guidance because it takes off quite a bit of pressure. And I really enjoy the involvement of the children, because if someone asks me, I can justify my actions and my aims and the reasons for whatever it is I'm doing. And I used to think, oh, it's got to sound really professional, like I'm on it. where now I'm thinking they wanted to is just as good an answer. By letting go a bit and letting them explore and take the lead, I'm simply there to support and help out wherever necessary.
So these quotations are demonstrating the educators' shift in thinking about what freedom with guidance means to them. Another one of our findings was that freedom with guidance was influenced by all, adults, children, and also the environment. They began to notice there were other factors in influencing what freedom with guidance looked like in practice. But they're noticing that it's also influenced by adults, children, and the environment. Engaging in offering freedom with guidance was a complex and dynamic endeavour. It involved multi-dimensional, multi-directional pedagogic interactions that were revealed through watching themselves back. There was a bouncing around in the way that adults, children, and environment were responding to each other. For example, they saw how much knowledge the children held.
You can see that the children have knowledge, and we trust them because you can see on the cameras how much they know, but also noticing how much the children learn, not without us because we're always there, but when you are stepping back and just recording their interactions, you think, wow, there's all that learning going on.
They began to notice differences in how they offered freedom with guidance in comparison to their colleagues.
But the little things, sometimes that's where freedom with guidance gets a bit challenging, because you overhear someone saying, oh no, don't do that, that's not safe. Actually, I think that would have been okay to let them, to see how that went. I wouldn't have quite stopped them there.
They also gave the children permission to slow down, and the children responded by creating space for themselves. For example, at Heron Nursery, an urban setting with very limited outdoor and natural space.
After watching the videos, there's just this corner in the garden that they love to go to, and you're just watching it. And like in most videos, you'll just see they're watching this corner in absolute silence. There's so many videos where they just look in this corner. It could be like a little worm.
So freedom with guidance was offered by the environment and natural resources, by children to adults, adults to children, children to other children, and by adults to adults. This decentralised the process from the educator and included a number of agents, human, living, and material, in constant interplay. So the project has enabled educators to commonly explore Froebelian concepts and the ways they inform their pedagogies and to develop a common discourse. Research conversations within and between settings created opportunities for educators to share knowledge, priorities, and values. Through this project, we've been able to establish a new East Kent and Medway hub with help from the Froebel Trust with funding. And this means that although we are a new fledgling community, we can continue our research conversations within and between settings and continue to develop a shared language and expand our community. So just to finish up, our recommendations, our educators have found it's important to begin with the evidence first. This meant observing themselves, interacting with children, not always an easy thing to do. They formed trusting bonds with each other to share their innermost pedagogical thinking and were prepared to be vulnerable. They saw the power of nature and reflected on the ways in which this afforded everyone opportunities to experience freedom with guidance. And if you're interested, please do join the network. Here are our contact details. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Karen and Polly, for that presentation. We're going to have questions at the end of the sessions, so we will move now straight on, I think. The presentation, which is Learning Alongside Grand Friends in a Froebelian-inspired intergenerational nursery. Let me introduce the speakers to you. Dr. Kay Heslop. Kay Heslop is an assistant professor within the School of Communities and Education at the University of Northumbria, which is Newcastle. Sue Eggersdorf is co-founder of Ready Generations research charity, which brings people of all generations together. She is an early years teacher, researcher, and community activist. And then Liz Ladden is co-founder of the charity Ready Generations and also leads the outstanding Dukes and Duchesses nursery in her home city of Liverpool. And then another member of the team is Charmaine Ajus Ferrante. She is in the webinar as well today. So over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting us to share our research this morning. It's been a real pleasure to engage in this research, and we're grateful to the Froebel Trust for their funding of it. The details of the research team will be found on the last slide. Our email addresses there. We are a team of 4. 2 of us are presenting today, but we are all actively engaged or have been in the project. The research partnership began over 5 years ago due to a mutual interest in intergenerational practice. Sue and Liz are trustees of Ready Generation, the charity which does everything intergenerational, and Charmaine and myself are academics at Northumbria University. It hasn't always been easy to make this work because we have other things going on in our lives, but we've formed a really strong team and we've enjoyed the process. This project began in 2024 when we realised that the voice of the child was missing from a lot of intergenerational research. There was a lot of research that said how beneficial intergenerational practice was for older adults. There was a lot of research that talked about mutual benefits for both adult and child, but our focus was really to find out, what do the children think about intergenerational research? And the nursery that's developed in the northwest of England with Sue and Liz at the helm, Ready Generations Nursery and Belong, was a perfect setting to carry out this research. We won't be able to tell you everything about the research today, but you can find our recently completed report on the Froebel Trust website, and we would encourage you to read that because the children's voice is in there, there's photographs in there, and it will tell you about the whole project. So when we set out to plan the research, we were really keen to identify the impact on children's holistic development through learning and development when they're working alongside their older friends, their grand friends in an intergenerational nursery. And to do that, we really needed to engage the children right from the beginning. The children needed to know, what does research mean? So that was our starting point. And we helped them to understand how we find things out, why we find things out, by using a children's literature story, The Little Mole Who Knew It Was None of His Business. And the children loved that story, anything about poo, and they seemed to be engaged. But they learned about how to ask questions, how to observe, how to find things out. And we did that well before we started the research. Charmaine and I also needed to engage with the children. They needed to know who we were. And we really had a strong basis to start the data collection. We came up with 3 key questions. But in order to find the answers to those questions, we employed Alison Clark's mosaic approach, which many of you will be familiar with. The children led us on tours around the village and really blew us away by their knowledge and they were just in charge. They were just in control. They knew exactly what was going on and they were desperate to share their views. They did some drawings. Not always what we expected, but isn't that right with children? They give what they want to give. We had some playful discussions. People would call them focus groups, but they were playful discussions with the children. And in addition, we spoke to parents and we spoke to older friends who live within the village to find out what their perception was of the child's learning. As we went through the project, we realised that the Froebelian principles ran right across the life course. Not only were they relevant to the young children, but they were relevant to our older friends, including those who were living with dementia. I'm not going to go into detail of each of those principles now. We've read about them, we know what they are, and there are examples in our report, so you can see exactly how they have worked. I'm going to hand over now to Sue, who can explain a little bit more about the village and the curriculum that we've been working under. Thank you, Sue.
Good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you, and really feel quite honoured to be sharing our work in what is the second day of Global Intergenerational Week. So people across the world are working together and thinking about intergenerational practice. So that makes today even more special for us. So my wonderful co-founder Liz is on the call, and she and I set out in our adventure to put a children's day nursery into an older people's care village back in about 2017. It took an awful lot of planning, and we finally opened in 2021. So that gives you some sense of how long it took to work alongside colleagues in adult social care to make something quite different happen. So our nursery is a 30-place nursery in the heart of a care village where 70 of our older friends live, some of them independently, some in households receiving residential care, and some in nursing care, and some also receiving end-of-life care. So a whole spectrum of grand friends, some more able to work alongside us and some less able. So what we wanted to do was to make sure that we were fully integrated and that the older people had an opportunity to learn alongside the children and vice versa. So to do that, we've been working on creating an intergenerational care and learning framework, our curriculum. And as you can see on the slide, it has 6 very clear domains, and they help us with our planning, our monitoring, and our assessment. The first domain is the most important one, and that's why we've coloured it green, because it's about seeing, hearing, and knowing people. Our model of intergenerational practice is based exclusively on the quality of relationships and what those relationships lead to. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. But just following on from what the previous speaker said, and I always find that these things always gel together so beautifully. We had no idea what the previous speakers were going to say, but they talked about children leading learning. And if you look at domain 4, we started that with expert nurturing adults. And what we quickly realised as we trialled our framework was that the children were just as much the leaders of the older people as the older people were of the children. So we've added in our children as expert leaders of their own learning in domain 4. And then I just wanted to pick up 2 on intentional environments, which is domain 6, and say the importance of really thinking about the resources that are used in intergenerational practice, in that we do need to think very carefully about the experiences that we offer children and young people together and select resources that are not childlike, that are open-ended and do enable older people to enjoy engagement with particular resources. So we do tend to use a lot of natural woods, a lot of things out of nature, so a lot of things that we bring in that we've collected, and a lot of things that our older friends share with us. So perhaps the most wonderful example of this was when one of our older friends brought their sewing box into nursery, and you will see that on the video a little bit later, and the children were absolutely enthralled with what was within that sewing box. So I wanted to pick up on domain 2 as well, just to explain what Sankofa means. So if you can just click on Kay, that will be brilliant. So I know we've got some colleagues from other countries, and the Sankofa bird, there is the Sankofa bird, is the national bird of Ghana. I don't know if anybody has joined us from Ghana, but they will recognise that bird for sure. And the message of the Sankofa bird in Ghanaian culture is that the bird is the elder, holding the child securely and saying, little child, let's look backwards to enable you to progress your learning. You must know where you came from, your culture and your heritage. So I, as the wise one, want to share and preserve our shared cultural heritage and legacy. So it's really lovely to have 70 older people who really do want to share their heritage, their stories, their cultures, that enable the child to position themselves in a world that is very complex. But what we see from that is children that feel secure as active citizens in modern democracies, able to make their comments known, able to feel secure in where they come from and the values that their community may host. And I've just seen in the post that there is somebody from Ghana, so absolutely amazing. So the message of the Sankofa leadership is really, in Froebelian terms, that everyone is a leader, that everybody has a wise message of where they come from and where they belong. So the Sankofa bird is very important to our work. So I'm going to hand back to Kay, just to give us a little summary of what we found in our research project.
So thank you, Sue. The summary of the findings there, I will let you read at your leisure. But coming back to the academic work that we did, we looked at all of our data together and we came up with 4 themes. We developed 4 themes. None of them will be a surprise to you. The first one was environment. We know how important the environment is to early years educators. The second, relationships. Again, relationships underpinned everything we did. Then we had agency, and the sub-themes of that were choice, resilience, voice, and personal power. Some really strong examples in there if you read the report. And the fourth one was the learning and development of the children. I'm just going to give one example from the relationships. Charmaine and I were observing in the nursery, and one of the grandfriends arrived after lunch at his usual time. A group of children shrieked out, "It's," and then they named our grandfriends. They ran over to him, held his hand, guided him to the chair where he normally sits, and for the rest of the afternoon, he observed those children. He became keeper of the toys. He smiled. They kept including him in different activities. And at one point, when they were drawing on a table nearby, one of the children went over to the grandfriend and said, "Which colour would you like?" and offered him a selection of pencils. And he chose some. Then the children realised he couldn't reach the table, he couldn't reach the paper. So together, as a team, they dragged the table across to him so that he could be included. And that really showed us their inclusivity, their recognition of the needs of others, and how they could act autonomously within the nursery. That's one very, very small snapshot, and there were hundreds of them. Please read the report to see the rest. I'm going to move on now to a video. Oh no, sorry, it's Sue again. I'm going to come back to Sue and then we'll go on to the video.
She's always trying to miss me out, you know. I know exactly who Kay's talking about, and that wonderful grandfriend of ours is no longer with us. But what he said to us is, please keep telling our story. Please keep telling our story of the potential of this work to really influence a change in how we think about care generally, care across the life course, care for little children, but also care for adults with learning difficulties, older people, for all of us. And we are carrying on his very important mission. So since the project finished, obviously Liz and I are still working every day in the nursery and are keen to pull some of the threads through to really work on them in a little bit more detail, to look for that real impact that is sustained over time. And these are our top 5. There are very many, and I wish we had longer to share them with you. But intergenerational work is not totally about visiting a care home or a setting with young children. That's a wonderful thing to do, and we endorse that totally as being really good, a good thing to do with children, and certainly good for older people. But equally, this living alongside each other is a very different proposition. And I think we're seeing a very big interest at government level now about multi-generational housing as being a solution to bigger problems in our society. It is important that our children see and understand very old and older people, and because so many of us are going to be living to a great old age, so we're going to have a society with many more older people in it. But what we found is relationships are everything, and that might be a very simple statement, but it's a very critically important one, because we have to give time to those relationships. So sometimes we rush our children along through the day. This means really, really believing in the slow pedagogy that allows relationships to develop at their own pace and gives children the opportunity to extend conversations and dialogue with adults. Presencing and noticing is a big bit of the children's agency. Again, it requires time for children to observe and make sense of what they might be seeing and noticing in their relationship with older people. And what we found there is our children are absolute experts at coming back to nursery and telling us who's got a plaster on their nose, who may have hurt their finger. So they notice everything about their older friends. And that presencing and noticing, we believe, is significant and important. And it's really interesting to see in the new Ofsted framework for schools, those of you that are teachers in school, this sense of belonging and mattering seems to fit very beautifully with what we're talking about here. Because the other thing that children are determined will happen with their older friends is that nobody is left out. And we're terming that in our ongoing sort of thinking, extreme inclusion. So it takes a long time to get people in wheelchairs and with frames and being fed by tubes to be able to join in. But by doing that and making sure everybody feels part of our community, we feel that our children are experiencing some situations and some experiences that they would perhaps not experience in a normal day nursery. So we also do not use the word activities, because they suggest a sort of start and a finish, a very abrupt, the activity this afternoon will be. So we describe what we do throughout the day as experiences, opportunities, and invitations. And that sense of you're invited is very important for older people, to feel that they are so important that we have chosen to invite them, gives them a sense of purpose and meaning at a time in their lives when they may feel that they are becoming invisible to our kind of modern society. And just to finish on that, really, the contributory roles and responsibilities and accountabilities that we give our older people help with that belonging and mattering. Liz and I feel like we've got 70 extra educators in our setting every single day. We've got one lady who helps us with phonics every day, and if she can't make it, she feels she has to ring us to apologise. We don't pay her. She's a lovely volunteer, but she's so committed to her role that she feels she has to ring us and give us plenty of warning if she's not going to be able to come in and do her shift as such. So how wonderful to see old people become early years educators. Thank you, Kay. I think we're just going to watch A film that funded by the Froebel Trust, which just shows you a little bit of the village so you can get a little bit of understanding of it.
My name is Sam. I am the Deputy Manager of the Nursery in Belong, which is run by the charity Ready Generations. Ready Generations work in partnership with Belong to run our intergenerational village here. The Froebelian principles are echoed around the whole of the nursery, so they're seen in our mirrored care and learning curriculum and through everyday life within the nursery. We see everybody as an individual, so our children here, our older friends and the educators, everybody is seen as an individual, and we support that by meeting people where they are. Our first domain of our mirrored curriculum is See Me, Hear Me, Know Me. So we see everybody, we get to know them, their story, and that's the starting point with everybody that comes into the village. The children sit and have their lunch in the bistro daily, and that encourages our older friends to come and say hello, and they share a skill of using the cutlery and self-serving their lunch, but in a social situation, a social environment that they'd be open to when they went to a restaurant. So they're learning the table manners and how important it is to sit and socialise and eat a meal together. I know a lot of our families are incredibly busy, that goes to everybody, but to sit down and have a meal with people and to have a discussion of what they've done that day, what vegetables have we got? Oh, I can grow those in the garden.
Thank you. I know we're out of time. So the video is available on the Froebel website, and there is also our full report. So if you would like to look at that, please feel free to contact us at any time and we'll tell you a little bit more. So thank you for listening.
Thank you both. Thank you, Kay and Sue.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're already so fulfilled from these two wonderful presentations. Let us now watch the video. Are we going to manage to watch the Tough Kid Woodwork Project video?
I'm just sharing it now, Carol. Thank you.
Great.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Janice Marriott. I'm the head of Tough Kid Nursery, which is part of an organization called Kisharon Langdon. And I'm really delighted to be presenting our project, the Tough Kid Woodwork Project, strengthening partnerships with parents with children with additional needs. And I have to say a huge thank you to the Froebel Trust for funding this project, and to Sasha and her whole team who've been so supportive. It's been amazing to work with you guys. Okay, so just a little bit of the context of Tough Kid. We have 31 children who were on roll at the time of this project, aged 2 to 4 years old. 1/3 of the children have complex special needs. That's children with EHCPs or going through the process. Plus, we also have children with additional needs. Tough Kid has a multidisciplinary team. That's a speech and language therapist who works 2 mornings a week, a physiotherapist, occupational therapist, dance movement therapist, and I myself am also a hearing therapist. And the way it works is that the therapists are working in the main room. They work with all the children. We do not run clinic. There's no pull out. So there is transference of skills because they are working outside. They're working in the home corner. And we've been Tough Kid has been here we started the nursery 25 years ago. So our Froebelian ethos. Froebel describes occupations as experiences that move children from the simple to the complex, from the known to the unknown, strengthening creativity, independence, and deep enrichment. We have been working with the Froebel occupations and working on our Froebelian pedagogy for the last 10 years. And as Tina did tell me at the very beginning, it is a slow cook. So it has taken us time, and we are constantly learning and developing new things, which means that we have to also work with our parents. So what happened was one day I was showing a potential parent around the nursery, and the parent saw the woodwork bench and said, "Oh no, that's very dangerous. I can't possibly send my child here. That my child can't work with the hammers and the nails." And that was a child with additional needs. So we actually thought about that, and we thought, do parents have enough information about woodwork? Do parents feel confident for their children to engage? Do we have enough support and involvement with this area in our curriculum? And we decided to send out a parents survey to see how they felt about it. We got a lot of responses. These are just a few. I wonder how such young children can do woodwork safely. I think of it as just hammering and nails. It seems enjoyable, but I really don't grasp the depth of the developmental benefits. With my daughter's current skills, I don't think woodwork is an option. It seems too risky. I am not sure how children who struggle to focus could manage something like woodwork. So we know that Froebel emphasized the importance of partnership with families, stating that the family is the first and most important school of the child. The parents are the first teachers and the home of the true foundation of all education. We really wanted our parents to feel that they were empowered with woodwork. So we thought how we can get all parents, including parents with children with additional needs, on board with woodwork. How can we work together as a team to benefit all the children in our setting? So what we did was, we know knowledge is powerful and sharing knowledge is key to working collaboratively with parents. So we offered an informative Zoom evening with woodwork specialist Pete Morehouse. And by doing it on Zoom meant that it was accessible to all our parents. They didn't have to find babysitters. It was easier for them, and 24 parents attended. And obviously Pete shared the message that emphasized that children start where a child is at and meeting them at their level, which is really important, because I think the idea of woodwork, and people think, oh, it's a hammer and a nail. No, not necessarily. So some of our children are starting with clay and with pegs and gold tees, and others are maybe tapper shaped. So they've got different ways of starting and at their levels. Pete also talked very much about all the different benefits involved with woodwork, and that taking risks is really important, but safe risk, and that how children can feel so empowered by creating something, and how it is cross-curricular, that it covers all the EYFS. So what was interesting was that we got the responses from the Zoom evening were that the video showed clearly how woodwork can be safely and adaptable for any child. I'd love my daughter to be involved now. I was surprised to discover the enormous benefits, creativity, risk-taking, and real satisfaction making something. I now see it as a powerful learning experience, not just fun. I was fascinated to learn that children who can have trouble focusing can now stay engaged for long periods during woodwork. So we had some really good responses back from the parents. But as we all know, and as Froebel said, to learn a thing in life through doing is much more developing, cultivating, and strengthening than to learn it merely through the verbal communication of ideas. This applies to both children and adults. So we decided to bring in our parents for a hands-on workshop with Pete, so they could learn for themselves through doing and experience woodwork. 15 parents attended. They got to experience the Japanese pull saw. They got to experience how much effort goes into cutting one tiny piece of wood, how much effort goes into hammering one nail. So they knew now that when their child comes home with that one tiny piece of wood and that one nail in it, they can see, they can understand the effort involved. They actually got something that they each made something that went home with them. So the responses we got back from the parents, these are some of them. I never thought I could create something. I surprised myself. It was calming, relaxing, and inspiring. It felt good to use my hands again. My kids are now asking me to do woodwork at home. I'm now super excited for my child to continue their woodwork sessions. And the children, we had some of our children who were verbal, were able to respond very excitedly that they had seen what their parents had created when they came into the nursery. And these responses demonstrated how parental participation strengthened unity between home and nursery. This supported sustained engagement beyond the setting. To conclude the study, we sent home videos of the children doing woodwork themselves, so the parents could see how the children were involved and how they had now an understanding of the theory and learning embedded in their actions. The parents could see their child as capable, engaged learners within a safe and supportive environment. And again, we asked for some more video responses to that. And it was amazing to see my child using tools safely and confidently. Seeing my child actually engage with woodwork made me appreciate how much skill and creativity they had developed. I had no idea my child could focus for so long. The video showed me how adaptable woodwork can be. These reflections demonstrate how seeing their child's competency helps the parents reconceptualize both risk and capability. So nothing, as we know, Afi said, nothing gets under the parent's skin more quickly and permanently than the illumination of his or her own child's behavior. The effect of participation can be profound. The parent's feedback showed growing illumination and by effect growing support. It is all a unity. Everything is based on unity, strives towards and comes back to unity. Unity of the whole child as complex individuals with coordinated components, and unity of each child as part of a family and wider community. And as we say, unity for us, that working together as a nursery with the child, with the parents, is absolutely fundamental. So what we found is that our trust in our ethos, increased parental understanding and confidence in our woodwork curriculum, reduced parental hesitation around woodwork, parental support and encouragement. We removed barriers that had previously limited some of our children's access to woodwork. I think some of the children were actually so enthralled by what their parents had made that they wanted to have a go at try and make something and really focus on their woodwork. Upcycling, involvement, helping parents understand the sustainability aspect of woodwork and encourage them to send in recyclables to reuse in woodwork activities. And we are continuing woodwork with parents and implementing workshops also with all the other Froebelian occupations with a focus on adaptability. And to extend our workshops also to other settings. And that happened because one of our parents asked us to please see if other settings could also hear what we had to offer. So that was really exciting. It was a very exciting project. It actually, just from how much time it took, we started the project, I think it was September, and we ended the project in end of March. So it actually took quite a few months to do. It was, as we said at the beginning, a slow cook. It takes time. And what we found now is that a couple of the parents who had come into the project, they actually had children who'd been with us in previous years, a year 2 child and a year 1 child, and actually they asked, those children were struggling in school, and they asked if they could come back for an afternoon and do woodwork with us as well, which was really interesting. And to see those children come back and just completely relax and be at the woodwork bench, you know, it would just be great if this could be rolled out into all schools. It really helped those children with their emotional development, which is what the parents felt they needed. So that was just an interesting aside. I'd like to take this opportunity again just to say a huge thank you to the Froebel Trust and Sasha. And please, if you'd like to be in touch with us, you can. My email is Yeah, janice.marriott@kisharonlangdon.org.uk. Phone numbers are there. We'd love to hear from you. And please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So you've had these 3 presentations, and we're going to open up the floor for some questions and answers. So see, Polly has joined me and the other panelists are joining me now. Yes, there's one question. I'll read out this one question from Lorna, which I think was after the first presentation. She says, I'm struggling with the freedom some of our children have, and they reject guidance and say, no, I can do whatever we like. We don't like nursery, and they say what they like and do what they like, disrespectful and unkind at times. Can you help with this? We have tried to have chats about being kind at gather time. So I think Kay and Karen, but anyone could really talk to this if you'd like to. It's an important issue.
Yeah, that does sound incredibly challenging. I think you have to perhaps ask yourself what you understand by freedom with guidance, and you know what we learned in our research from our educators was that children need to be afforded guidance too. So how are they guiding the adults? And they're clearly guiding the adults. And how are the adults listening to that guidance? It's hard, isn't it, sometimes to hear what children are asking of you, but there's clearly communication happening. And it's how that is, I suppose, responded to. I don't know if you wanted to come in at all, Polly, with any other thoughts?
No, I think I'd agree with you, Karen. It's about kind of what opportunities we offer to the children. I suppose what strikes me from the question is when the children say they don't like nursery, I'd be curious to know why and how the educators could explore that a little bit more to get a greater sense of the children's perspectives of what their time's like in the setting.
Would anybody else like to comment on that one? Because it is obviously an issue that arises in all kinds of settings, or could do, or okay, no, okay, then let's move on. Libby says, hi, Corinne and Polly. During the focus groups, were the educators able to reflect on how their choice of verbal prompts or questions posed to the children were able to further or perhaps hinder freedom with guidance?
Yeah, I think this was the beauty of the focus groups, that they were done within these trusted sort of circles, and they had pre-selected the excerpt that they wanted to share, and they sort of shared their innermost thinking, really. And as that was revealed, the others were encouraged to sort of dialogically explore that with them. And through that process, they often, I suppose, understood more about why they might have done things in the way that they did, and why they might have asked the questions they asked, or what was sitting underneath that. And then they were able to perhaps consider alternative ways that they might have asked the same question, or even ways in which, in some cases, I'm thinking, they said, I speak too much. I need to listen more. I need to step back. And they sort of responded to that. So as the research progressed, I suppose what you tended to see, not wanting to make sweeping generalizations, but the educators tended to step back more and give the children more of the center stage, and began responding more to them. So yeah, it was a really effective way, I suppose, of re-watching yourself in practice and really reconsidering and learning from that.
Yes. Okay, another question, just one more question, I think, to your session. The first session was that the staff use GoPro cameras to look at footage and reflect on their pedagogy. And the question is, did any of the children want to wear the cameras as well?
Yeah, I can answer that question. Yes. So when the staff were reflecting on little bits of footage that they'd selected, some of that footage was footage taken when they were wearing the GoPro cameras from their perspective, but other instances of the footage were taken when the children themselves had worn the GoPro cameras to give that sense of a different perspective. But it was down to the educators. They had the power to make the decisions about who was wearing the GoPros, obviously with the children's consent.
Okay, and then a question from Diane, and I think maybe this will be we'll end the session after this. She said, we started our Froebel journey in September. It is a slow process, and we have started with slowing down meal times, which has worked really well. Any suggestions of where to go next? I think she's asking about the intergeneration, well, the meal times, yes. The slowing down and how to slow down further.
I think Sue would be able to speak to that one from the intergenerational village point of view.
Sue, you're muted. Let's unmute you.
Sorry, just ask me again. It was about slow pedagogy.
Yes, it's about slowing down and what other ways to slow down. They started with meal times.
Yeah, I mean, in all reality, if you've ever tried to rush a 95-year-old, well, good luck with that because it's not going to happen. So it's a very natural thing that at first we were concerned that the children might be too lively in certain situations, but this is where the children are intuitive, natural experts. And they respect and show dignity to somebody that may not be as able to move around as freely as them. And we have been astonished by the way the children show care, love, respect for people that are less able than them. And so we let our children lead. And I think there was just one other question quickly that I would just like to respond to because it is an important one about death. And we get asked this all the time, that our children are experiencing more death than perhaps the average child would. And that is certainly the case. We deal with it openly and honestly. And again, the children are our experts. They don't dress it up. They say exactly what's happened, and then they support others if they're feeling sad. So we have a remembering book that you'll see in the report where we remember what our grandfriend told us and we bring them back into our lives daily by talking about them. So death is not anything to be frightened of in intergenerational work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions.